May I speak in the name of the living God, who is Father, Son and Holy Spirit. Please do be seated. I'm going to move around the front because of social distancing. That means I can't see the people who are tucked away inside, and that's not great, is it? So, it's not fair. You can almost hear the cries of those labourers, can't you, who feel hard done by. We worked harder, we worked longer, we deserve more. Fairness is an interesting concept, and I would suggest it's a subjective one. It's often, I believe, based on where we are in the subject of fairness, how it affects us, will be how we perceive what is fair and what isn't. I wonder if I asked each of you, we haven't got time to do it this morning, but if I asked each of you what is fair, what does it mean, I'd get slightly different or nuanced answers. I guess I'll get different answers from different people based on different situations, different life experiences and different priorities. We're all different, and therefore I suggest we view fairness in a slightly different way. I'm going to go out on a limb here now, but I suggest if I had the power and I said to each of you, I'm going to take a proportion of everything that you own, your money, your land. I'm going to leave you enough to live on, but I'm going to take a chunk of what you've got, whether it's a quarter or a half. I'm going to leave you enough to survive on. I would suggest a lot of people claim that isn't fair. After all, you've probably worked very hard for what you have, for what you own. Around the world, there are millions of people who have insufficient. They don't have the bare necessities to live. They don't have enough money, food, shelter. I think most of us here would probably agree that that's not fair either. You see where I'm going with this? So what would happen if I took this money that I've hypothetically taken from you and given it to people who haven't got enough to live so that they could? If it was used to feed, clothe and house the needy, then I suggest the argument about fairness changes somewhat. But of course it's not simple or clear-cut. The arguments at government level and beyond about the redistribution of the world's wealth have gone on for years, and I expect will go on for many more. This week, like most weeks these days, I spent far too much time in Zoom meetings. And one meeting that I was involved with was about churches and environmental issues, because in short, the way the richest people in the world live, which, believe it or not, includes us, in world terms, we are the richest people in the world, amongst the richer people in the world, is impacting negatively on the world climate and on the lives of the people who live in the poorest parts of the world. That is not fair. Another meeting that I was involved in this week was to look at stewardship, and I know several of you here were also in that meeting, and looking at funding within our group of churches. The whole way in which the Church of England is funded is not fair. Groups of churches are provided with ministry and clergy to a large degree regardless of their ability to pay for those costs. And that's not fair, because that means that someone else is picking up the bills for ministry that other churches are unable or sometimes unwilling to pay for. Is that fair? It depends on what we consider as fair, isn't it? This group pays about 2/3 of the cost of having a full-time clergy person, a ministry person. That means someone else is picking up 1/3 of the cost of me or ministry in this place. Yet I'm sure this is an unfair situation that we're all quite happy to benefit from. But now as a diocese, this is being considered deeply. The diocese back in the early part of this year started a programme called Resourcing Sustainable Church that set up 5 different working parties to look at deployment of ministers, look at parish share, what we can afford, churches, and the whole business of being church in this place. At the end of this month, on the 30th of this month, I and other people within this area, not just our deanery, but South Stephen, are going to be part of a consultation. And in November, Diocesan Synod will be presenting a plan for how ministry will look in the future. And I'm sure there will be, however that works out, there will be shouts of, it's not fair. And as I said, we had the stewardship meeting the other night, and hopefully I hope we're going to be looking shortly amongst our various PCCs at stewardship and money and how we contribute to that whole business of ministry here. When you heard our gospel reading this morning, I wonder if you felt that the labourers who worked all day receiving the same pay as those who only worked an hour was unfair. What about the landowner? We heard a little bit about it from him, didn't we? You know, it's his money. Surely it's his choice as to how he spends that. So long as he's not robbing anyone else, as he wasn't, he was paying what was agreed. Would it have been fair for him to have had to pay more money to those who'd worked longer, or less money to those who had worked less? In a way, I feel it's been a little unfair in talking about fairness this morning. Can I say that? It's unfair for me to talk about fairness? I've said it, haven't I? Because we're called to put aside all human understanding of fairness within our faith and concentrate on Jesus' teaching. Because the whole basis of the Christian faith is not one based on fairness, or certainly not on the human understanding of fairness. The whole basis of our relationship with God is based on the fact that Jesus died for us. Now, I don't think that can be described as fair. The offer of a relationship with God is open to every single one of us and every single person outside this church building, not based on how good or bad we are, whether we're worthy or whether we're not worthy. It's unconditional. In human terms, that could be argued as not being fair. Our whole relationship with God is based on incredible levels of grace, generosity, and hospitality. So I suggest that actually, rather than looking at what we consider to be fair or unfair, maybe we should just accept that generosity and grace that comes from God and follow Jesus' instructions to us, which is ultimately to love our neighbour as ourselves. There's no room for human greed or self-serving in that. And that, my brothers and sisters, would involve putting aside what we consider as fair and doing what is right and what Jesus teaches us. As our reading from Philippians encourages us to do, to live our lives in a manner that is worthy of the gospel of